100 francs CFA is the amount contributed by members of parliament to the fight against COVID-19 in Cameroon. The amount was handed today to the Prime Minister, Head of Government, Chief Dr. Joseph Diongute, at the close of the second ordinary session of the parliamentary year 2020. The House Speaker Cameroon Jibril has lauded the efforts of medics in the fight against COVID-19, urging them to continue staying strong despite the pandemic. Also, we tell you how the Minister of Forestry and Wildlife is in Douala for a 3-day working visit. Jules Dorendongo is here to ensure that companies do not suffer from COVID-19. He is also here to see to it that the forestry companies benefit from measures put in place by government in favor of enterprises in the country within the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. Those are top stories. Good evening and thanks for joining us. You're watching the Primetime Newscast on STV. Just as we told you in the headlines, the Minister of Forestry and Wildlife is in the economic capital for a 3-day working visit. Jules Dorendongo is out to assess the impact of COVID-19 on the economy and to ensure that companies in the forestry sector benefit from economic measures put in place by government within the context of COVID-19. Our reporter Josephine Beans trailed the minister on day one of his working visit, and our reports.
Presidential order to assess work done on the field regularly was the motivation of the Minister of Forestry and Wildlife, Jules Dorendongo's visit to the wood sector in Douala to have a proper assessment of their difficulties during this COVID-19 pandemic season.
I want to congratulate the Director General of HappyCam, who is here present, for the diverse measures taken as an organization of the nation who preserved the employment of workers and preserved the production rate. We really want to acknowledge that they did a great job because a good number of persons have lost theirs, and I want to encourage them and say that government will remain attentive to all that could be put into practice for the textile company to be a creator of employment and pay a minimum wage rate.
A revamp in Cameroon's economy has been the heartbeat of the head of state, as he has previously assigned those in charge to get possible solutions to ratify Cameroon's economic deficit.
Parmi les mesures qui ont été énoncées récemment, a instruit le ministre de l'économie.
Amongst the measures that were implemented recently, the Minister of Economy and Finance were instructed to put in place a platform to receive and listen to economic operators who are dissatisfied with the other measures that were taken, especially with the payment of taxes. Those in the forestry sector are equally to be received, and their expectations and aspirations are not going to be cut short, and government will give a listening ear to their worries to adopt appropriate measures.
This follow-up session is to assess the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic, employment, reduction in taxes, and listen to all stakeholders as well as solve their difficulties. This is a 3-day visit in the littoral region, which began in Edea in the Sanaga Maritime Division and will end in the Wuri Division on Friday, July 10, 2020.
The second ordinary session of Parliament for the year 2020 has come to an end in Yaoundé. The Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Cameroon Jibril, has saluted the President of the Republic for his decree increasing the retirement ages of public health workers and the 20% surge in retirement pensions. He has also urged the health workers to continue the fight against COVID-19. The sum of 100 million francs CFA was handed to the Prime Minister, Head of Government, as contributions from the MNEs to the fight against COVID-19 in Cameroon. It should be noted that 7 bills were adopted during the 30-day session. The head of state, President Paul Biya, has increased by 20% the pension rate of retirement, the pension of retired civil servants in Cameroon. The old age pensions, disability and death benefits have been raised by the above quarter to enable the senior citizens deal with the economic shocks emanating from the COVID-19 pandemic. Josephine Binzi reports.
A 20% increase in the amount of pension paid to workers in the public sector has been the desiderata of the presidential decree yesterday, July 8, 2020. This is good news for retired persons in Cameroon in all categories in the public sector as the decree goes into effect in the month of August. This is close to 4 years after the decree was revised, as in February 2016, they set rates for social security contributions and remuneration ceilings applicable in branches of family deficits, old age, invalidity, and death insurance. The 2016 presidential approach has been part of the plan to fight against poverty. This has been the long cry for the National Social Insurance Fund, which has been clamoring for reforms in this domain. They lauded this initiative with both hands since 2007, as a progressive structural benefit in the pension branch stood at 14.7 billion in the increase of only 6.7% compared to 2013. In 2015, the pension branch deficit was at 16.4 billion. In a bid to improve the living conditions of its pensioners with the support of government, the Social Security had proposed severally on raising old people's pension to enable them meet up with the cost of living during this COVID-19 pandemic. Decree number 2020/376 of 8 July is aimed at fixing the coefficient for the upcoming revision of certain aged people and incapacity pensions to take effect on August 1, 2020. The 20% increase is not a fixed sum, but will be dependent on how much the latter earned while in service and the category they retired in.
The Enterprise Upgrading Office in the country has unveiled attractive opportunities in the beverage and fish industries. This follows results of a 4-month survey which revealed impeding factors to these sectors and how they could be revived. Details with Ladonet Oni.
The beverage and fish industry, highly shunned by many entrepreneurs in Cameroon, has been proven by the Enterprise Upgrading Office to be a good sector for exploitation and investment. According to statistics gotten from the Food and Agricultural Organization, about 1.3 kilogram and 3.5 kilogram of meat and fish is being consumed by an individual in Cameroon. A statistics lower than that of other countries like France, with more than 30 kilogram and 70 kilogram of meat and fish consumption, thus exposing a backwardness in exploitation.
The sector is very huge potential that you can exploit. We have make what we call an survey. And in the survey, we have built some conclusion. The first one is that our enterprise need adapted financial in order to perform the activities. There is a very great lack of building capacity, and there is a great lack of infrastructure that can help them to improve the activities. Those are the action that the government can, on which government can play in order to improve the potential of the sector.
All these conclusions were drawn after about 4 months of intense survey of the food supply sector. A survey intended to identify the problem faced by those involved in this zone and find solutions to these backdrops.
And today we are giving back the result of the study of 4 filière. Let me say filière, I don't know. Yes. Wine, fish, and meat. Yes. And we will see what are the difficulties of our enterprises in those filières, and see how to focus our strength to resolve those difficulties. We have also in our mission to give to the government the solution we think government can take for the economy in general.
All these were the highlights of a workshop held today, 9th July 2020 in Douala, a workshop which also exposed the impact of the COVID-19 on entrepreneurs.
The Douala City Council has begun beefing up the capacities of commercial motorbike riders in the city on responsible behavior. This is through a training program. Our reporter Christel Asexuele tells us that the selected candidates will be awarded driver's licenses at the end of the exercise. Our report.
The project Moto Afrique, training of bike riders, emanates from so many observations made in regards to bike riders' behaviors on the highway. Most accidents in town are caused by bike riders. We aren't saying the taxi drivers are better behaved than them, but more of the bike riders, due to their ignorance of the highway code. The number of On the other hand, it's a sector that is very difficult for the municipal authorities to contain.
Vise à faire que le secteur des mototaxis soit attiré.
This project is aimed at making the bike rider sector organized, as well as making them to be better citizens of the town who protect the city's heritage, as well as the passengers they carry on their bikes, so that this sector will not be regarded as a sector with individuals with bad intentions.
De mauvaises intentions derrière la tête.
After this official launch, July 8, 2020, at the Douala City Hall by the Senior Divisional Officer, will be the phase consecrated for training. This in the months ahead, which will be done in 4 modules. The respect of signals and the good handling of a bike. Thought about the regulations because most people think that bike riders are indisciplined, so we base the training on instilling in them Cameroon's regulations code.
Vu dans cet angle, nous avons trouvé qu'il était nécessaire, n'est-ce pas, de leur faire intérioriser les éléments de la réglementation camerounaise.
At the end of this training session, bike riders of the Douala 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 districts will be able to receive the license in the category A. The bike riders will have to pay the sum of 7,000 francs instead of 17,000 francs for this training, as the rest will be subvented by the government.
Tomato farmers across the country are going through severe economic shocks due to the drastic drop in the prices of tomatoes, which is now in the peak season. The situation is hinged on the shutting down of borders by Cameroon and other neighboring countries, which has made the exportation of the fruit a hectic task. Christel Asexuele has more.
Notre tomate est trop gâtée. On n'a pas eu d'argent, donc on peut dire quoi? L'année, si c'est trop fort sur nous.
Farmers in Cameroon are hard hit following the drastic drop in the prices of tomatoes. At the Sandaga market, a specialized market in the sales of large amounts of vegetables and spices at the Rond-Point 4e in the Douala 1 district, Abdel Jikam, a tomatoes farmer we met this morning, July 9, 2020, tells us how difficult it is for them to recover the money to repay the loans they incurred to invest in their tomatoes farms this season.
It's really a difficult situation we face. Pure loans and can't pay back as we produce, but can't sell out our products. For debtors, I take my case. I invested in my tomatoes farm the sum of 2 million francs CFA, which I loaned. After selling all my products, I get just 500,000 francs. I am obliged to sign an undertaking promising to reimburse my loan bit by bit.
Donc là, j'ai juste signé et je remboursé doucement.
Outbreak of the coronavirus health crisis that caused borders with neighboring countries to be closed is heavily affecting the sales of this glossy red fruit, he further explains.
Avant la crise, les frontières étaient ouvertes. Par exemple, la frontière de la Guinée, du Gabon, du Nigeria, toutes ces frontières étaient ouvertes. Et grâce à ça,
before this crisis came, the borders were open and we were exporting our products to other neighboring markets like Nigeria, Equatorial Guinea, and Gabon. Business was booming. With the outbreak of this virus, this is no longer possible. Business is not moving. We harvest more tomatoes than we sell. A basket of tomatoes now sells at 2,000 francs, which was not the case before. Before the crisis, a basket of tomatoes was sold at 5,000 francs, sometimes even at 10,000 francs. But since the outbreak of this health crisis, tomatoes prices have dropped drastically. Transporting a basket of tomatoes from the farms to Douala cost 1,000 francs. Cost of an empty basket is 300 francs. 200 francs is the cost of harvesting a basket of tomatoes in the farms. You spend a total sum of 1,500 francs for a basket of tomatoes, which you end up selling at 2,000 francs or 1,500 francs. Sometimes this is a huge loss for us farmers.
Et si là tu commences à vendre à 2,500 pour finir à 1,000 francs, franchement tu te retrouves en train de travailler, donc de perdre en général, c'est ça.
A huge loss that has slumped some of these farmers into severe health crisis as a result of what they are facing. Most of them are clamoring for the authorities to open the borders so the crops can be evacuated to target markets. They also propose the setting up of a tomatoes transformation facility, which they believe will be a lasting solution to this nightmare they find themselves in.
Puisque là maintenant, tout ce que nous cultivons, nous consommons sur place.
Right now, all the tomatoes we produce are consumed only within the country, and we can't export our products to other markets due to the lockdown. We call on the government to consider reopening the tomatoes transformation facility known as STAND, because right now, with the present situation, we really need such a structure to enable us transform our tomatoes into finished products, to permit us pay back the loans we have incurred. If nothing is done, I am afraid the worst awaits us. I have friends in the business who are in prison as I speak. Others have committed suicide because they are unable to repay the loans they took to invest with.
Parce que j'ai un ami qui se retrouve présentement en prison à cause des dettes de tomates. Et j'ai un ami qui s'est pendu à cause des dettes de tomates. Donc là, ça devient difficile.
Other crops in season have not been affected like tomatoes because they are not perishable. And the absence of a facility to process this fruit to increase its shelf life in the country is a call for concern.
Out of the country, more than 3 million Americans have died from COVID-19, and more than 130,000, more than 3 million people rather have contracted COVID-19, with about 130,000 deaths registered so far. The pandemic has hit many of the country's big cities like California, Florida, Texas, and Arizona. More with the VOA.
The California coronavirus surge led by Governor Gavin Newsom, a Democrat, to order partial lockdowns in about a third of the state's 58 counties. The state assembly, scheduled to return from summer recess next week, is also closed indefinitely. That's unacceptable to some Republicans.
It's just not a sustainable solution to shut the legislative branch of government down indefinitely. There are people across the state who depend on the work we do, not least of which the work that is directly relevant to addressing the public health issues related to COVID-19 and the associated issues affecting the economy and people's lives.
In Florida, another hard-hit state, Republican Governor Ron DeSantis says there are medical facilities across the state ready to handle the influx of coronavirus cases.
In South Florida, you now have the Miami Care Center. You have a facility in Broward that's COVID only, and then you have 2 in Palm Beach County that are COVID only. So that's a pretty significant number of beds to be able to care for people who are COVID positive.
On Tuesday, Florida Democratic congressional delegation blasted the governor's response to the outbreak, saying his refusal to issue statewide orders requiring masks and closing beaches is killing Floridians and spreading the disease. Florida has been averaging more than 8,500 new confirmed cases per day during the past week, almost 8 times the average of a month ago. In Arizona, there's also a record demand for hospital beds.
We are definitely not seeing the curve bend. I mean, every day it seems one after another there's a new record level of brand new cases of COVID-19 in the state of Arizona.
Texas, during a surge, has become one of the U.S. states worst hit by the coronavirus pandemic. More than 10,000 new cases on Tuesday, a record since the pandemic started. But despite state orders, many locals, such as these rodeo spectators, still reject social distancing regulations and wearing face masks.
Because I'm an American and I feel like I should be able to do what I want to. I pay my taxes, I live free, I want to be free.
Because it's against our constitutional rights. They shouldn't be able to dictate what I wear.
But a leading American infectious diseases expert warns after the past weekend's Independence Day celebrations, the number of coronavirus cases could increase dramatically.
We are in one of the worst parts of the epidemic. This is the beginning. They will double in the next 2 weeks and then double again the week after that.
But the White House COVID-19 task force sees a different picture.
We're actually seeing early indications of a percent of positive testing flattening in Arizona.
FIFA has unveiled a transfer matching system, the TMS, which replaces the FIFA Connect for registration of players henceforth. Player agents in the country say the new system will curb age cheating, which is commonplace in the world of football. John Paul Sama reports.
All Cameroonian football players, especially those to move to other clubs, will have to go through the FIFA Transfer Matching System, TMS, and no longer the FIFA Connect for their registration. This system is set to be implemented in a bid to reduce fraud which exists in the past with players and their ages.
FIFA TMS that you are saying, it concerns players. All the fraud that was before is not more. It means that when you want, if you are a player for 15 years, the age will go, the 15 years age will go worldwide, and he can't change, he or she can't change that age again. Like it was before, people try to change age and bring bring court declaration that it wasn't their age, this and this.
Meanwhile, the registration window for players begins on August 1st for the upcoming sporting season, but player agents say it is easier to register and transfer players locally than out of the country with the COVID-19 restrictions.
Now to look for players, it's very difficult to transfer a player from Cameroon to a different club because first of all the embassy is not open, there's no means for traveling, it's very, very difficult. You can't move to a different country to like, okay, the Danish embassy is not in Cameroon, Swedish is not in Cameroon, you have to move to Nigeria, or Portugal embassy is not in Cameroon, you have to move to Nigeria. So there's no means of moving these players, moving players now, making players to travel to these other neighboring countries to collect visa. So it's really impact on us.
Okay.
So, but with the transfer of other top players, transfer from one club to another.
The new dates and changes were announced by the World Football Governing Body at the start of this month.
Cameroon football players are having a tough time dealing with fitness in the period of COVID-19. They are, however, keeping fit in their own way as they await the start of the next season. John Paul Summer once more.
It's not an easy period for football players as they have to stay away from what they love doing, but circumstances have made them to train on their own to avoid getting contaminated with the COVID-19.
Depuis le début de la phase de cette pandémie, je n'ai pas arrêté de m'entraîner jusqu'à présent. La pandémie a déjà fait près de plus de 2 mois.
Since the beginning of this COVID-19 outbreak, I've not stopped training. It's almost 3 months now. I still follow my routine, but I might not be in good form as I would have been in club now.
Comme si j'étais en club. C'est vrai que durant cette période, je ne suis pas à fond comme c'était en club, mais j'entretiens le corps.
While preparing for the upcoming season, they engage in certain exercises in order to keep fit.
I wake up very early in the morning. I have some press-up, which I do every day in the morning. And after that, we have a specific program with Coach Richard Toa. We usually train around 6:30 to 9. Which really permits us to be fit.
Football competitions were stopped in March and a new date is yet to be announced by the football authorities in Cameroon for a new season.
That's this edition of the Primetime Newscast on STV. Thank you very much for watching. More news comes up in the French language at 8 p.m. From us, have a good night. Bye-bye.